So we shall start with a new chapter today, that is anti-epileptic drugs. Okay, so again these are the drugs which are acting on the CNS. Okay, so before we go into the actual chapter, let us see what we are going to cover in this particular chapter. The outline of the chapter goes as follows. First we will see the types of epilepsies which are seen. Next we are going to cover the classification of the anti-epileptic drugs, and after that we are going to cover the individual drugs one by one. Okay. So before we go into the drugs, let us see what are the definitions of epilepsies and what is the definition of anti-epileptic drugs. Okay, so epilepsies, as you all are already aware of, it is a disorder of the CNS, and this is characterized by paroxysmal cerebral dysrhythmia. This is an unusual pattern of the EEG which is characteristic of the epilepsies. Okay, and this particular disorder, it manifests in the form of brief episodes. That is, when a person is suffering from epilepsy, continuously the symptoms will not be seen in that particular person. So there will be brief episodes, or what they are called as epileptic attacks will be seen. Okay, so these brief episodes where the symptoms are precipitated, those brief episodes are known as epileptic seizures. Okay, so in this particular brief episodes or seizures, the outcomes like loss or disturbance of consciousness may be seen. The person may sometimes maintain the consciousness, or this sometimes the person may also go unconscious. And this, along with this, either there may be presence of characteristic body movements or absence of characteristic body movements. So these characteristic body movements, the jerky movements which are seen, okay, so those characteristic body movements which are seen during epileptic attacks, those are collectively known as convulsions. Okay, so convulsions are the characteristic body movements which are seen during the seizures. Okay, so convulsions may or may not be seen in a particular person with or without characteristic movements. Okay, so convulsions may be produced or may not be produced during a epileptic seizure. Apart from that, sensory functions may also be affected. Even certain psychological or psychiatric characteristics may also be precipitated. Now, if you consider the pathophysiology of epilepsy, I will not go much in detail, but you all are already aware that there is a focal origin in the brain. Okay, so epilepsy, it has a particular point of origin in your brain. Certain area in your brain originates certain type of impulses. Okay, so which are normally not evoked. Okay, so in this particular area of the brain, there is repetitive firing of impulses. Generally, your brain it generates the impulses as and when it is required, depending upon some physiological functions to be carried out. Okay, or maybe some physical activities to be carried out. So according to your body needs, the brain areas are actually stimulated. But in this condition, there is a focal origin from which there is repetitive firing of the impulses. Okay, and the manifestations or what outcomes will be produced or what symptoms will be seen, that will depend upon where exactly that focus is located, the site of the focus of the origin of those impulses, region to which the discharge is spread, that is, which areas of your brain that impulse is going to spread. Okay, so all together the outcome or the symptoms or the manifestations, these will depend upon the site of the focus from where the impulse is originating, and to the area or the extent of area where exactly it is going to spread. Okay, then coming to the definition of anti-epileptic drugs, these are the pharmacological agents which are used in the treatment of epilepsy. So they will have therapeutic effects in the epilepsy. Okay, so they will show the improvement in the symptoms of the epilepsy, or control in the epileptic seizures will be seen when when these particular drugs are administered. Then we will see in brief what are the different types of epilepsies, because when we discuss the individual drugs, we will see in which type of epilepsies exactly that particular drug is used in. So you need to have a brief idea about what are the different types of epilepsies. Okay, so basically there are two types of epilepsies: generalized seizures and partial seizures. So these are the two types, two main types. Again, there are different subtypes within that. So we will take up the first one, that is generalized seizures. Under this there are 5 subtypes. The first one over here is generalized tonic-clonic seizures, and this is the accepted short form for this, GTCS. Okay, or it is also known as major epilepsy, or it is also popularly known as grand mal epilepsy. This is a quite common term which is used, okay, for generalized tonic-clonic seizures. Okay. Now the basic difference between this term generalized and partials. Okay, so what is exactly the generalized seizure? Generalized seizure meaning here both the hemispheres of the brain are involved, whereas in case of partial seizures, one side or one hemisphere of your cerebellum may be involved. Okay, so that's why they are categorized into generalized and the partial. So under generalized, the first one is GTCS, second one is absence seizure. This is also known as minor epilepsy or petit mal type of epilepsy. This is also quite common, wherein the person or the subject or the patient is, it keeps staring at one particular place with no movements. Okay. Then the next type is atonic seizures, or these are also known as akinetic epilepsies. Okay, akinetic, okay, meaning no movement. So here there will be loss of motor activity, that is your skeletal muscles will move their they will lose their contractile property. Okay, so the person may not be able to maintain the posture or stand properly. The person may fall down also, okay, under the influence of this type of seizures. Then next is myoclonic seizures. Okay, so over here there will be jerky type of movements in the body will be seen. Okay, just like the type of body movements which are seen after an electrical shock. So the jerky movements or characteristic body movements will be shown in this type of seizures. The next one is infantile spasm or hypsarrhythmia. Okay, so infantile spasm meaning this is the type of generalized seizures which are seen in small babies. Okay, so babies also may show characteristic body movements. Okay, then the next type of epilepsy is partial seizure. As I told that one of the hemisphere will be involved over here. Okay, entire brain will not be involved. Under this, the first type is simple partial seizure. Okay, so over here there will be a particular focal origin from which there will be repetitive seizures which will be seen. Okay, and this is the accepted short form for this simple partial seizures. It is also known as cortical focal epilepsy. Then the next one is complex partial seizure. Okay, this is the accepted short form, CPS, and it is also known as temporal lobe epilepsy or psychomotor type of epilepsy. Okay, so as the name implies, mostly the focal origin is in the temporal lobe of the brain. Okay, then the third type is simple partial or complex partial seizure, secondarily generalized. That means initially when it begins, it is either a simple partial seizure or it may be a complex partial seizure which later on involves the entire brain. Okay, as I have told you, partial seizures meaning it involves only half of the brain or any one hemisphere of the brain or the cerebellum. But after some time, as time elapses, it may involve entire brain, that is both the hemispheres may be involved. So it becomes generalized later on. Okay, so these are the types of epilepsies. Now coming to the classification of anti-epileptic drugs, the first class under this is barbiturates, which we have discussed under sedative hypnotics chapter as a prototype of the CNS depression drugs. Over there also we had discussed that the only barbiturate which is effective as anti-epileptic drug is phenobarbital. Then the second class is deoxybarbiturate. The only example over here is primidone. The third class is hydantoin. Examples under this are phenytoin and fosphenytoin. The fourth class involved is immunostilbin. Examples under this are carbamazepine and oxcarbazepine. Fifth class is known as succinimide. Example under this is ethosuximide. Sixth class is aliphatic carboxylic acid. Examples are valproic acid or the salt form, that is sodium valproate and divalproex. Then the seventh class is benzodiazepines. As under sedative hypnotic chapter we have seen, as one of the sub classification of benzodiazepines is anticonvulsant drugs. Okay, so certain benzodiazepines have specific anticonvulsant properties. So examples included are clonazepam, diazepam, lorazepam and clobazam. The eighth class of anti-epileptic drugs is phenyltrazine. Examples is lamotrigine. There is only one example. And the ninth class is cyclic GABA analogs. Okay, so as the name implies, these are GABA analogs, that is gamma amino butyric acid analogs. These are okay. So examples are gabapentin and pregabalin. And the last class is newer drugs. Okay, so as the name implies, these are the recent drugs, okay, which have unusual mechanism of action. So they are not categorized under any of the previous classes. Okay, so these include examples like vigabatrin, topiramate, tiagabine, zonisamide, levetiracetam and lacosamide. So this finishes the classification of the anti-epileptic drugs. Now moving on to the individual drugs. So we will take up the first drug, that is phenobarbital, which belongs to the class barbiturates. Okay, so the pharmacology, the detailed pharmacology of barbiturates we have already discussed under the chapter sedative hypnotics. Okay, so over there we had discussed that barbiturates are the prototype drug of the CNS depressant class. Okay, so these were these were discovered quite earlier. Okay, so this particular class of drug. Okay, so this phenobarbital, it was the first of the efficacious drug found to be efficacious in epilepsy treatment. Okay, so it's the first of the anti-epileptic drug which was introduced in way back in 1912. Okay, so at that time this particular class was quite popularly used for the treatment of epilepsies, but nowadays the use is gone a little bit down because still better drugs are available in the market. So later on many classes were added, as we have seen. So many better drugs were available. So nowadays phenobarbital is not a first line drug, but it can be used in certain situations or as an adjuvant drug, that is along with the other first line treatment drugs. This particular drug can be combined. Okay, now coming to the mechanism of action. Mechanism of action of phenobarbital is the same as what we have discussed under the sedative hypnotics chapter, that is it is having the GABA facilitatory action. That is, once it binds to the receptor, barbiturate receptor is there, so once it binds to it, it will promote GABA binding to its receptor, which is located, both these receptors are located on the chloride ion channel in the brain. So it facilitates the action of the GABA, that it's promoting the GABA binding to its receptor. It will result in opening of the chloride ion channel. It will keep it open for a longer period of time, and that's how it will produce the inhibitory action. So synaptic inhibition will be seen with the same mechanism as we have seen under sedative hypnotic. However, if you consider this particular example out of all the barbiturates, phenobarbital, it is the only example which has specific anticonvulsant activity. Rather, we have seen that barbiturates, these are having general CNS depressant property. Okay, but that is not the case with phenobarbital. It has specific anticonvulsant activity rather than producing general CNS. It doesn't produce anticonvulsant activity just because it shows CNS depressant property. Okay, so it has a higher anticonvulsant to hypnotic ratio. So as compared to the hypnotic property, that is induction of sleep, it has more of anticonvulsant property. Now the reason behind this is it has minimum effect on the calcium ion channels and the glutamate release. Okay, under the sedative hypnotics, in the mechanism of action, if you can remember, apart from the chloride ion channels, we had discussed that barbiturates also act by some certain additional mechanisms like the suppression of the calcium ion channels, and the glutamate release is also prevented. Okay, so that's how it produces the inhibition. But such kind of mechanism of action is not seen with the phenobarbital. Okay, so it is insignificant, the other mechanism. So it acts exclusively by action on the chloride ion channel. That's how it is having higher anticonvulsant to hypnotic ratio. That is, it is having more selective anticonvulsant property. So also it can be proved by continuous administration of phenobarbital. If you administer phenobarbital over a period of time, for a chronic period of time, slowly the sedative action wanes off. That is, it will disappear, it will go off. Okay, now no doubt it is having selective anticonvulsant property, it is having more anticonvulsant property as compared to hypnotic property, but still it has hypnotic property, though it is lesser, but still it can produce sedation. So that's one of the major drawback when you use phenobarbital as an anti-epileptic drug. So it becomes a side effect, though it may be therapeutic property if it is used as a sedative hypnotic. So now here in this case, when you are prescribing phenobarbital as an anticonvulsant drug, over a period of time sedation wanes off. That is, the sedative property may be lost over a period of time, but the anticonvulsant action is not lost, it is maintained. Okay, so that indicates that both the actions are not because of simply producing the general CNS depressant action. It has specific anticonvulsant activity. So also if you can see the spectrum of action, it is also having wide spectrum of anticonvulsant action. That is, it is effective against many types of epilepsies. Coming to the pharmacokinetics, oral absorption of this particular drug is slow to occur, and even the T half-life is also longer, as we have already discussed. 80 to 120 hours is the T half-life of this particular drug. So it is a quite long acting drug. Okay, metabolism, it takes place in the liver. So also this drug is also excreted in the unchanged form also. So complete metabolism of this drug does not take place. One more important point you should consider over here is steady state concentration. Okay, that is, after administration of a particular drug repeatedly, it takes some time for it to obtain a steady state plasma concentration. That is, it is obtained after balancing the administered dose and whatever drug is eliminated from the body, excreted and metabolized. Okay, so plasma concentration remains steady after a lag time of 2 to 3 weeks. So it may show a little bit lag time for it to produce the action. Okay, so that's the drawback with this particular drug. Okay, then coming to the drawbacks or the adverse effects of this phenobarbital. Yes, of course, the major drawback over here will be the sedative property. Okay, because here we are giving this particular drug to treat the epilepsies and not the insomnia. Okay, so sedative property or its hypnotic property, it is a therapeutic property when this drug is given in the patient who is suffering from insomnia. But here we are giving this drug for the treatment of epilepsy. So sedative property or its hypnotic property, it becomes a side effect over here. So it becomes an unwanted effect over here, because here your use is changing to the treatment of epilepsy. Then apart from that, long-term administration, that is chronic treatment, it may show certain additional side effects like behavioral abnormalities. Person's behavior may change. Then intelligence may get affected, it may get diminished. Okay, then impairment of learning and memory, because of the drowsiness or sedative property, learning and memory may be affected. In case of children, hyperactivity may be seen, excitement may be seen. Okay, and older individuals, mental confusion is seen. Okay, so this is seen only in the older individuals. Okay, so characteristic adverse effects may be seen. Apart from that, rashes, hypersensitivity reactions may be seen, megaloblastic anemia, okay, and osteomalacia, that is the softening of the bone. Bones may become weak over here in this particular condition. You must have already studied this in your earlier pharmacology. So osteomalacia may get precipitated when you use this drug over a long period of time. And coming to the uses, as I've already told you all that this particular drug has a wide spectrum of activity, that is, it is effective against a number of types of epilepsy. So also added advantage is that it is cheapest, okay, so cost effective drug, and also it is least toxic out of the other, when you compare the other anti-epileptic drugs, okay. So the types of epilepsies for which it is used: GTC, that is generalized tonic-clonic seizures, simple partial seizures and complex partial seizures. However, because of availability of other more efficacious drugs, okay, so these drugs are preferred nowadays: carbamazepine, phenytoin, valproate. Since these drugs were discovered, the popularity of phenobarbital has gone down. Okay. One more use of this phenobarbital is in the treatment of status epilepticus. Now, this particular condition, it is a life-threatening condition wherein the brain is in a state of persistent seizures. That is, as I have discussed in the introduction, that person may not suffer from seizures continuously over a period of time. So, it will appear in the form of short-term episodes, that is, it will last for a certain period of time, and after which the person may recover after the appropriate care and treatment given to that particular person. Okay, but in this condition, status epilepticus, the brain remains in the state of seizures for a period of time. There are persistent seizures, that is, it lasts for a long period of time, and it is a life-threatening condition. So over here, phenobarbital can be used by parenteral routes. However, the response is slow to develop. So that's why its popularity in this condition also has reduced, because of the availability of other more quickly acting drugs. Okay. However, absence seizures cannot be treated by phenobarbital. It is not effective in the treatment of absence seizures. Okay. So this finishes phenobarbital. Then coming to the next drug, that is primidone. So it belongs to the next class, that is deoxybarbiturate. So it is a deoxybarbiturate. Okay, so active metabolites are produced from this particular drug. Okay, so it's a prodrug which after metabolism in the liver, it gets converted into phenobarbital and phenylethyl malonamide. So these are the two active metabolites which are obtained after metabolism of primidone. Okay, so actual anti-epileptic activity or anti-epileptic property is not because of the parent drug, it's just a prodrug, it does not have any activity, but after metabolism the two metabolites are generated. So whatever anti-epileptic activity is shown by this drug is mainly because of these two active metabolites which are generated. Okay, however, 1/3 of the primidone is also excreted in the unchanged form. Okay, so it does not get activated, it does not get converted into its active metabolite. Okay, so if you consider, next point is the potency. If you consider the potency of this drug, okay, it is dose to dose less potent as compared to phenobarbital. So when you compare primidone with phenobarbital, the activity, it is less potent. That means less potent meaning higher dose of primidone is required to produce same amount of action of that produced by the phenobarbital. Okay, so no doubt it is less potent. Okay, higher dose will be required as compared to phenobarbital, but the anti-epileptic efficacy, that is the total action which is shown by this particular drug, it is similar to phenobarbital. Okay, so only thing is same amount of action will be produced, same amount of anti-epileptic activity will be seen with the use of this particular drug. Only thing is a little bit higher dose will be required as compared to phenobarbital. Okay, if you consider uses of this particular drug, it is used in GTCS and partial epilepsies, and mainly it is used as an adjuvant drug to the other important drugs like phenytoin and carbamazepine. So it's not a quite popularly used drug. If at all it is used as an adjuvant drug, as an add-on therapy to the other important drugs. Coming to the adverse effects are same as that of phenobarbital, because as we have discussed, phenobarbital is one of the active metabolite which is generated. So whatever adverse effects we have seen under phenobarbital, the same adverse effects will also be shown by the primidone. In addition to that, other adverse effects are anemia, then leukopenia, that is reduction in the count of the leukocytes, then psychotic reactions, that is psychosis may be precipitated, the same symptoms like those which are seen in the mentally ill persons, okay, psychosis persons, the same type of symptoms may be precipitated. Then lymph nodes may get enlarged or abnormal size of the lymph node may be seen. Okay. Then coming to the next class, that is hydantoin. Over there are two examples, phenytoin and fosphenytoin. Coming to the first drug, that is phenytoin, this is also known as diphenylhydantoin. So this particular drug is quite popularly used nowadays in the treatment of epilepsies. Now earlier this particular drug was actually discovered as a barbiturate analog. Way back in 1908, it was actually discovered as a barbiturate analog in the treatment of insomnia, okay, for its sedative property. But later on it was found that it is having poor sedative property. It was not very much effective in the treatment of insomnia, okay. But at that time it went out of use, but later on, around in 1938, its anticonvulsant activity was discovered. So it was, this is a kind of drug, example of drug repurposing. That is, actually a drug was introduced or it was discovered for some other purpose, but now it is being used for some other purpose. So earlier it was discovered for its sedative property as a barbiturate analog, but now it is quite a popularly used anticonvulsant drug. Okay, so in 1938 its anticonvulsant activity was tested, and since then this is one of the most popular first line drug in the treatment of number of types of epilepsies. Okay. Now over here, if you can see certain properties, it is not a CNS depressant. Okay, it does not produce CNS. The overall general CNS depressant drug, it is not there. Okay. Then some sedation, it is produced in the therapeutic doses. Okay, so sedative property is there in the therapeutic doses. Okay, but if you increase the dose further, it will not show increase in its sedative property, or it will not show hypnotic action. Rather, if you still go higher in the toxic doses, it will show excitement rather than the sedative property. Okay, so opposite action will be seen, and muscle rigidity also will be seen. Okay. Coming to the mechanism of action. Okay, now mechanism of action of phenytoin, it is based on its membrane stabilizing property. Okay, so it stabilizes the neuronal membrane so that the repetitive firing which takes place from a particular focal origin will not take place. Now impulse generation, okay, impulse meaning an action potential is generated in the neuron of the brain. Alright, so action potential meaning there will be a depolarization phase, right? Action potentials you all are already aware of. Try to draw it over here. Okay, so this is the AP. Okay, so in an AP there will be a resting membrane. So once there is a stimulus or impulse or a trigger, there will be depolarization. That is, the potential will increase. Okay, now this depolarization phase, it is dependent upon the sodium ions. Okay, I don't think I have drawn it very well. Okay, so it depends upon the sodium ions. Okay, so sodium ions will move inside the cell through the sodium ion channels. Okay, and because of the inflow of the sodium ions, it will result in the depolarization phase. Okay, so now how phenytoin is acting is, it stabilizes the membrane. Okay, that is, resting membrane potential is maintained so that the depolarization shift does not take place and the impulse or the repetitive firing of that action potential does not take place. Okay, so this is achieved by stabilizing these sodium ion channels in the inactivated state. So voltage sensitive neuronal sodium ion channels are the targets of phenytoin. So how it is acting? It is acting by maintaining these channels in the inactivated state. So when it is in the inactivated state, sodium ion channels cannot be opened. Even if there is an impulse, sodium ion channels will not be able to open. Okay, so there won't be any inflow of the sodium ions. So depolarization will not take place. Okay, so it is acting by prolonging the inactivated state of the voltage sensitive neuronal sodium ion channels. So this will govern the refractory period of a neuron. Okay, refractory period of a neuron meaning it is a time at which no new action potential can be generated. Okay, so sodium ion channels are inactivated. So even if there is a stimulus, there won't be any opening of the sodium ion channels. Sodium ions will not flow through. So there won't be any change in potential, no increase in the potential. So if you all can remember, there is a threshold. So unless and until the potential crosses this threshold, AP is not generated. Okay, so it will result in the suppression of the generation of the action potential. So rather it will stabilize the neuronal membrane so that the action potentials are not generated. So high frequency repetitive firing are mainly affected over here. Okay, next. Apart from this action is shown at the therapeutic doses. Now at higher doses or at toxic concentrations, other mechanisms are also involved, that is reduction in the calcium influx is also seen. Apart from that, inhibition of the glutamate. Glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter, so this is inhibited, the action of glutamate is inhibited, so it is resulting in depression. Okay, apart from that, facilitation of GABA similar to barbiturates. Okay, so facilitation of GABA. GABA is an inhibitory transmitter, you are already aware of in the brain. Okay, so it is facilitating the GABA response. So it will ultimately result in the suppression of the impulses which are generated from a particular focal origin. So this is the mechanism of action of phenytoin. Then coming to the pharmacokinetics. Absorption by oral route, it is very slow to occur, mainly because of its poor aqueous solubility. The aqueous solubility is a very important criteria, as you all have already studied in your basic pharmacology, that absorption process will depend upon its solubility in the gastric content or your GI content. So unless and until your drug is dissolved appropriately, unless and until it is dissolved in the aqueous medium which is present in your body, it will not get absorbed. Okay, so due to its poor aqueous solubility, the absorption from the oral route is slow to occur. So parenteral routes are preferred for the administration of phenytoin. Okay, bioavailability, if you consider of the different marketed preparations, okay, that is the same product or the same drug will be marketed by different companies in the form of different formulations, right? Even though their strength is same, okay, still the bioavailability from the different marketed preparations may vary. Okay, the bioavailability, the amount which is actually available in your systemic circulation out of the fraction which is administered, or the total amount which is administered into the body. So bioavailability from the different marketed preparations by different companies, it may differ. So variable bioavailability is same, it may not remain the same. Then distribution, if you see, it is widely distributed throughout the body. Plasma protein binding is 80 to 90%. Coming to the metabolism, it is metabolized mainly in the liver by hydroxylation process, and this hydroxylation involves two enzymes. Two main enzymes involved are CYP2C9 and CYP2C19. These are the very important enzymes in the metabolism of phenytoin. Apart from that, it is also getting metabolized by the glucuronide conjugation, which is a phase 2 reaction. Okay. Now, one more important thing you should keep in mind about the kinetics of this drug is the metabolism of this drug is capacity limited. That is, the order of reaction is changing over here. that is the order of reaction, it changes from the first order to zero order. Now this you all have already studied in your basics. What is the order of a reaction? A first order reaction meaning here the saturation is not taking place. So as you increase the concentration of the drug, the metabolism of the drug also will go on increasing. So they are proportional to each other. In case of first order kinetics, when the metabolic process is following a first order kinetics, it means that even if you increase the plasma concentration, the metabolism also will go on increasing proportionately. Okay, so that the plasma levels or the plasma concentrations are not altered, they are maintained. Okay, but over a period of time, as you go on increasing the dose, the kinetics changes from first order to zero order. Zero order meaning what? As you increase the concentration, the metabolic rate does not increase further. That is, saturation of your metabolism has taken place. So all the enzymes or all the processes which are involved, maybe hydroxylation and the glucuronide conjugation. So all of them have got saturated now. So even if you increase the concentration of your phenytoin, no additional enzymes are available for the metabolism to take place of the additional drug which has been added due to increase in the dose. Okay, so over here the metabolism is getting saturated. So even if you increase the plasma concentration or if you increase the dose, the metabolism is not going to increase proportionately over here, because all the processes of metabolism has been occupied. Okay, so as you go on increasing the dose, the plasma concentration may be disproportionately increased. Okay, so disproportionately high plasma concentrations may be seen, because later on as you go on increasing the dose, the metabolic processes are saturated, because it is moving from first order kinetics to zero order kinetics. Okay, so metabolic processes are saturated, so you are going on adding the drug to your body, but it is not further metabolized because the processes are already saturated. So there will be very high plasma concentrations will be seen if you go on increasing the dose. At a particular level, if you cross, say for example, if you cross this particular plasma concentration of 10 micrograms per ml, there is a disproportionate increase in the plasma concentration. Rapidly the plasma concentration will go on increasing. So over a period of time, the T half-life, as you go on increasing the dose, the T half-life of the drug, which was earlier 12 to 24 hours at therapeutic levels, okay, or at therapeutic concentrations, it may progressively increase up to 60 hours. So you can see how much the T half-life is increasing, because the order is changing, metabolic processes are saturated. So if you cross certain plasma concentrations, the metabolic processes or enzymes are going to get saturated and the drug may start accumulating in the body and it may be quite dangerous. So you need to monitor the plasma concentration over here, and you should be cautious while you are administering this particular drug over a long period of time. Okay, however, 5% of the drug is also excreted in the unchanged form, mainly in the urine. Rest is getting 95% of the drug is getting metabolized. Coming to the adverse effects. The adverse effects of this drug, again, they depend upon whether those which are occurring at the therapeutic levels or those which are seen at the toxic levels or at the higher plasma concentrations. Okay, so coming to the adverse effects which are seen at the therapeutic plasma concentrations or the therapeutic levels. Very important adverse effect is gum hypertrophy. That is, gums of your teeth, it will appear swollen. Okay, this is a very prominent side effect of the phenytoin. The next is in case of female specifically, hirsutism is seen. That is, the male pattern of hair growth will be seen. Coarse and thick hair will be growing just above the lips, maybe on the chest. Very coarse and too much hair will be seen in case of females. Then even the facial features may also be coarse. Okay, so that exactly your facial expressions may not be identified. Okay, so facial expressions will become coarse and acne may also be seen on the facial regions. Next adverse effect is hypersensitivity reactions like rashes or DLE, that is discoid lupus erythematosus. So over here scaling of skin is seen, especially in the scalp region, okay, or maybe near your ears, okay, or maybe in the facial regions. Okay, so scaly appearance is seen with the skin. Because of this, hair loss may also be seen because of this particular condition. Okay, the next complication is lymphadenopathy. Okay, the lymph node may be enlarged or diseased, or they may alter in the size. The neutropenia, that is reduction in the neutrophil count of the body, may be seen. Another complication is megaloblastic anemia may be precipitated. Now the reason why phenytoin is precipitating this type of anemia is it is decreasing the folate absorption. Okay, so folate absorption is also reduced, plus its excretion from the body is also increased. So the body folate level will go down, and that's how megaloblastic anemia will be precipitated. The next complication is osteomalacia may be precipitated. That is weakening of the or softening of the bone may take place. This is because phenytoin, it is interfering with the metabolic activation of vitamin D. As you all are aware that vitamin D is very important for your bone growth, normal growth of your bones. Okay, so if there is vitamin D deficiency, your bones may become weak. Okay, so why bones are becoming weak, or why this condition is precipitated? Because there are two reasons over here. Phenytoin, firstly, it is affecting the activation of vitamin D, which is required for the normal development of the bone, and plus it is also acting on the calcium ions. Okay, that is calcium ion absorption and metabolism. So these are also interfered with. Okay, so calcium absorption may not take place appropriately. Okay, so that's how the calcium levels may go down. Again, it may result in weakening of the bones. The next complication is it inhibits the insulin release from the pancreas. So the formation of insulin is not affected in the pancreas, but its release is inhibited. Because of this, hyperglycemia is precipitated. As you all are already aware that insulin is a very important hormone which regulates the blood glucose level within the normal range. Okay, so if there is low level of insulin in your body, okay, obviously hyperglycemia, that is increase in the blood glucose level, may be precipitated. Then when this particular phenytoin is prescribed during the pregnancy, it can produce fetal hydantoin syndrome. That is, it has teratogenic tendency. It is supposed to be avoided during pregnancy. It is not supposed to be given, otherwise it is having teratogenic effects. It is producing effects like hypoplastic phalanges, meaning specifically your finger bones are known as phalanges, right, in your hands as well as in your foot. Okay, so hypoplastic phalanges, meaning your phalanges are not developed appropriately, especially the last one. Actually your fingers, it has 3 bones. Okay, so the terminal bone may not be developed appropriately. Okay, so fingers of the baby will be short. Okay, shorter fingers will be seen. Then cleft palate. Palate, it is the roof of your mouth which separates your nasal cavity from your oral cavity. Okay, so the cleft palate, meaning there is a gap over there. Okay, so the person may not be able to talk appropriately. Pronunciation may be different. Okay, then hair lip. Hair meaning rabbit. Okay, so rabbit like lips will be seen. Just like if there is it will appear as if there is a cut on the lip. Okay, so hair lip, rabbit like lips will be appeared in the child which is born. Microcephaly, that is the size of the brain will not be appropriate. So these are the adverse effects shown at the therapeutic level. Now those which are shown at high plasma levels or at the toxic levels. So these include cerebellar and vestibular manifestations like ataxia, that is motor incoordination, vertigo, dizziness, or you feel giddy. Okay, then diplopia, that is two objects will be, the two images will be formed of the same object on your retina. Double images will be seen, okay, of the same object. Though it is one object, you will see as if there are two objects. Okay, the nystagmus, that is involuntary movement of the eye, side to side movement of the eye may be seen. Okay, the next type of adverse effects are on your CNS. Drowsiness may be seen, behavioral changes, mental confusion, hallucinations, that is imagining something which is not existing, okay, or hearing something which is not existing, disorientation and rigidity. Next is GI side effects, epigastric pain, that is upper regions just below your chest. In the epigastric region, there may be pain which is experienced, nausea and vomiting may be precipitated. But these side effects can be minimized by taking the drug with meals. That is, if you take it along with food, these side effects are minimum, okay, or lower. Then, if you inject this particular drug by IV route, okay, IV injection of this drug when it is given, it can cause local vascular injury. Okay, so that is wherever you are injecting this particular drug, it can produce intimal damage in that region. Okay, so whichever vein you are injecting it, that particular point, the intima of that blood vessel may get damaged, or thrombosis of the vein may also take place. That is, the platelet plug may take place in an intact vein also. That is known as thrombosis. Okay, so because of these vascular complications, edema, that is swelling, and discoloration of that injected limb will take place. So in whichever limb you are injecting, that particular limb will become edematous and discoloration of that limb will take place. So because of these complications, the rate of injection, that is the speed at which you are injecting this particular drug, it should not cross a particular limit, that is 50 milligrams per minute. Okay, so this is the speed with which you are supposed to administer. I am not sure whether it is 50 milligrams. I think it should be 50 ml per minute. Okay, I'll clarify that. Okay, so this is the speed. So speed of the injection or the rate of injection is limited because of this complication. So also, if extravasation takes place, that is, supposing there is a mispositioning of your needle, and if supposing that solution which you are injecting in that vein, by mistake if extravasates, that is, if it goes out of the vein, then surrounding tissues may undergo necrosis, that is, tissue damage may also take place in that particular area. Then apart from that, fall in BP and cardiac arrhythmias may also be precipitated, but these effects are seen only upon IV injection. So you should be careful while administering this drug to a person who is suffering from cardiovascular complications. Then coming to the interactions, drug interactions, phenytoin. Before going to the actual interactions, few points about its action on the metabolism is discussed. That is, phenytoin, it is an inducer of specific enzymes, CYP enzymes, that is CYP2C8, 2C9, CYP3A4 and 3A5. So CYP3A4, which is a very important enzyme in the oxidation reaction, which is involved in metabolism of most of the drugs. 50%, nearly 50% of the drugs are metabolized by this particular enzyme. So some other CYPs are also induced. So it will enhance the activity of these CYP enzymes. So whichever drugs are involving this particular enzyme in metabolism, it will result in increase in their metabolism. So they may not show effectiveness if they are getting inactivated by the metabolism. Plus, one more action on the metabolism is that it can also competitively inhibit the CYP2C9 and 2C19 enzyme. Okay, so it is inhibiting these enzymes, inducing these enzymes, whereas it is inhibiting these two enzymes. Remember, these enzymes are also involved in metabolism of phenytoin itself. Okay, so it is inhibiting these enzymes, CYP2C9 and CYP2C19. So whichever drugs involve these two enzymes in the metabolism, their metabolism will get inhibited. Okay, so mostly if you can see the interactions, they are based on the inhibition or induction of the metabolism or displacement from the plasma protein binding. So first interaction is with phenobarbital. So So this drug phenobarbital, which is again used as a anti-epileptic drug belonging to barbiturate class, as we have discussed. So this drug competitively inhibits the phenytoin metabolism. So metabolism of phenytoin is inhibited by phenobarbital. Okay, so because of this, it will increase the concentration of phenytoin. So there are chances of precipitation of toxicities of phenytoin because its metabolism is inhibited and its levels will increase. Whereas there is one more interaction over here, okay, with the same drug, that is phenytoin and phenobarbital. Both of them are enzyme inducers also. Okay, so they can induce each other's metabolism. That is, phenobarbital induces phenytoin metabolism and phenytoin induces phenobarbital metabolism. Okay, so over here there is inhibition of phenytoin metabolism also, and if you can consider the other part, there is induction of the metabolism also. So this particular interaction is quite complicated one, and overall outcomes are highly unpredictable. You may not know what is going to happen to the phenytoin levels. Okay, next interaction is with carbamazepine. Again, it is an anti-epileptic drug. So carbamazepine and phenytoin increase each other's metabolism. When both are given together, both of them will increase each other's metabolism. Carbamazepine increases phenytoin metabolism and phenytoin increases carbamazepine metabolism. Okay, so both of them will reduce each other's effectiveness. Next interaction is with again one more anti-epileptic drug, that is valproate, sodium valproate. This drug displaces phenytoin from protein binding. It is 80 to 90% bound to plasma protein. So this valproate, when combined with phenytoin, it will start displacing the bound phenytoin. Okay, so because of displacement from plasma protein binding, as you are aware that once it is displaced, it will be available in the free form in your blood. So plasma concentration of the free form of phenytoin will increase, and actually the free form is available for action. Okay, it can be available for crossing the membrane, for distribution and for its action. So free form will be increased. So also valproate decreases the metabolism of phenytoin also. Okay, so one more interaction is that it can decrease its metabolism also. So again it will increase the plasma levels of phenytoin. Okay, so very high plasma levels of unbound phenytoin will be seen, so that phenytoin toxicity can be precipitated. Next interaction is with chloramphenicol, isoniazid, cimetidine and warfarin. All of these drugs also can inhibit the phenytoin metabolism, so that the free form of phenytoin again will be increased and it can precipitate the toxicity of phenytoin. Then next interaction is with warfarin. Phenytoin, it competitively inhibits the metabolism of warfarin, so that warfarin will not be metabolized and it will remain in the body for a longer period of time. Next interaction is phenytoin induces the microsomal enzymes and it increases the degradation of the steroids. Certain drugs like steroids, so oral contraceptives, these are also steroids, as you are aware. Okay, so their metabolism will be increased, so that failure of oral contraceptives will not show effectiveness when it is combined with phenytoin. So also it is also increasing the degradation of doxycycline and theophylline. This is an antibiotic, and theophylline, it is used in the respiratory conditions, treatment of respiratory conditions, asthma and all. Okay, COPD. The next interaction is with sucralfate. Okay, sucralfate, it is an anti-ulcer drug. So sucralfate, when it is given along with phenytoin, actually within the GIT, before the absorption, sucralfate can bind to the phenytoin. Okay, so that phenytoin will not be absorbed appropriately. So it will decrease the absorption of phenytoin. Okay, so phenytoin will not be absorbed, so obviously its therapeutic plasma concentration may not be attained and it will not show effectiveness. Apart from that, one more minor interaction is there with the acidic drugs. Acidic drugs, it can replace the phenytoin from the plasma protein binding site again. Okay, but it also increases the phenytoin clearance. That is, though it is displacing it from plasma protein binding and increasing the concentration, it is also enhancing the clearance, removal from the body. So as such, it may not alter the free form of the phenytoin. It may not increase the plasma concentrations of free form of phenytoin. Coming to the uses, as I told you that this is one of the first line treatment of the epilepsies, which is found useful in many of the types of epilepsies. It is effective in generalized tonic-clonic seizures, simple partial seizures and complex partial seizures. Also effective in status epilepticus, a life-threatening condition for which phenobarbital is used. Over there also slow action is a problem. Here slow injection is a problem. Okay, because under the adverse effects we have seen that phenytoin cannot be injected at a faster rate. You need to inject it at a slower rate. So again, its effectiveness over here is not very much promising. And the third use is trigeminal neuralgias. Okay, that is a specific type of neurons may be diseased because of which the pain may be seen in the areas where this neuron is supplying. However, this is the second choice drug to carbamazepine. So for trigeminal neuralgias, carbamazepine is a preferred drug. So this finishes the pharmacology of phenytoin. Now, one more example is involved over here, that fosphenytoin under hydrogen. Okay. Now, fosphenytoin, it is a pro-drug of phenytoin. Basically, this is designed to overcome the difficulties, certain difficulties of phenytoin. We have seen there are so many drawbacks. Okay. So, this particular drug, fosphenytoin, it is a water-soluble pro-drug of phenytoin. Remember, under phenytoin, we have seen that aqueous solubility is low, because of which its absorption may not be very good. So it is a water soluble prodrug of phenytoin. Okay. So major advantage of this particular compound is that IV administration. The problems with IV administration of phenytoin, these are overcome by introduction of this drug. So nowadays, instead of phenytoin, fosphenytoin is preferred in the treatment of status epilepticus, because this drug can be injected at a faster rate. As I told that injection should be given very slowly in case of phenytoin, which is not the case with fosphenytoin. It can be injected at a faster rate. Okay, so less of intimal damage is seen, lesser vascular complications are seen, unlike the phenytoin. So it can be injected at a faster rate. Okay, so it can be injected at a rate of 150 milligrams per minute. In case of phenytoin, we have seen it is just 50. Okay, so it's a prodrug. It will get converted into phenytoin. Actually, the action shown will be because of the phenytoin which is generated in the body. So fosphenytoin is given in terms of equivalence to phenytoin. So how much amount of phenytoin is supposed to be generated, that much amount of fosphenytoin is administered. Okay, one more advantage is that fosphenytoin can also be injected in the IV line, that is in case of saline infusion or glucose infusion. Phenytoin cannot be injected in a drip of glucose because it gets precipitated. So that problem is also overcome with the use of fosphenytoin. Okay, so these are few of the advantages why this prodrug was generated. Rest properties remains the same because basic action is because of the active metabolite, that is phenytoin, which is generated. Okay, so this finishes hydroentine class. So we will stop here.